Point of View is powered by Airtel Tigo Extra. Even our bonus data doesn't expire. You dey feel am? Dial *111# to activate now. Airtel Tigo. Life is simple. And Lydia Contraceptive. With Lydia, you truly decide.
Welcome to The Point of View. This is your favorite current affairs show on television here at CTTV. On The Point of View, we pick the right topics, we get the right guests, ask them relevant questions on issues that matter to you. It's an interactive show. We really like to hear from you. So if you're watching on television, send us your comments on the WhatsApp number on the screen. And if you're watching on any of the social media platforms, please feel free to comment on the stream. We have a big conversation today. It's not just a Ghana conversation. It's not an Africa conversation. It's a global conversation. Everybody is thinking about this issue. When we come back, I'll tell you who my guests are and how we're going to approach this. Welcome back. So the Point of View is brought to you by Airtel Tigo. Life is simple. So from the middle of March, the President of Ghana began a series of measures to contain the spread of COVID-19. One of the most significant things he did was to close down all schools. We're in the middle of July, so it's been 4 months since schools closed. Even though some schools have been trying to do online learning, it's not been easy. In Ghana, our final year students are in school just to prepare for exams. But the big debate globally is, when do we fully reopen schools? The fall, as the Americans call it, is a period where people go back to school in September. There's a big debate globally in Ghana as well about whether we will be ready by September to reopen schools. Already, the DG of the WHO has said that any hopes of returning to the new normal should be deferred because the new normal will not come back and in the foreseeable future. What does that mean for schools to reopen? Let's start with what the United States has been going through. There's a tussle between the states and the country's leadership over when to reopen. President Donald Trump wants the states to reopen schools, but the states are not having that. One of my favorite people within the period has been Governor Andrew Cuomo, the New York governor. I'm going to show you a short clip of Governor Cuomo explaining how New York was going about deciding when to reopen schools. It's a very short video. Just have a quick view.
There is a state formula that will determine if it is safe to reopen schools, okay? So open schools or not, there's a state formula that determines it. There are then state guidelines as to how that school reopens, right? State formula determines if it reopens. If it reopens, the second question is how, and that will be done by state guidelines. But the question of school opening is like the question of reopening the economy. Reopening the schools, reopening the economy. It's the same conversation. And by the way, it's the exact same conversation with the President of the United States. We talked about reopening the economy, and he said, just reopen the economy. There's no reason for any of this stuff, phases, data, masks. It's all baloney. Just reopen. Yeah, we saw how well that worked. Go ask Florida and Texas and Arizona how well that worked. On schools, what does he say? Reopen the schools. Just open them up. Don't worry. Yeah, he was wrong on the economic reopening. He's wrong on the schools reopening. Everybody wants to reopen the schools. I want to reopen the schools. Everybody wants to reopen the schools. It's not do we reopen or not. You reopen if it is safe to reopen. How do you know if it's safe? You look at the data. You don't hold your finger up and feel the wind. You don't have an inspiration. You don't have a dream. You don't have an emotion. Look at the data. We test more. We have more data than any state. Look at the data. If you have the virus under control, reopen. If you don't have the virus under control, then you can't reopen, right? We're not going to use our children as a litmus test, and we're not going to put our children in a place where their health is endangered. It's that simple. Common sense and intelligence can still determine what we do, even in this crazy environment. We're not going to use our children as guinea pigs. I say to the experts, it's very simple. If I'm making the determination as to whether or not I would send my daughter to school, if it's safe, I'll send her. If it's not safe, I'm not going to send her. And you can determine that by science. So the formula is this. Schools will reopen if that region is in phase 4 and the daily infection rate remains 5% or lower over a 14-day average. Okay? You're in phase 4 and you're under 5% infection rate. That means the virus is under control. That means it's safe to reopen. And then the schools can proceed to reopening in that region. Exactly how, you look at the state guidelines. This determination will be made the first week in August. Second question is, what happens if between the first week in August and the day school opens, the virus spikes? I don't want to be in a position where we made a determination August 7th and then the virus spikes, but we already said the schools are going to reopen. So the safety valve, there's a floor. Schools will close if the regional infection rate is above 9% on a 7-day average. Okay? So you get a green light, reopen in a region. If you're in phase 4, day average, that means the virus is moving rapidly and it is not intelligent to open. That's the green light and that's the red light, and it's the way we've done the economic reopening. It's purely on the numbers. Purely on the numbers. It's on the science. We'll make the first decision. We'll look at the numbers the week of August 1 to 7, the week because it's a rolling 14-day average. Different regions are in different positions on the 14-day average. Between August 1st, you get a green light on August 1st. Between August 1st and the day the school opens, we continue to monitor every day. And if the infection rate goes over 9, then we hit an emergency stop button. Okay? It's very simple. It's clear. Once you get a green light to reopen, then how you reopen, you follow the guidelines. And we leave it to the 700 school districts across the state to come up with the specific plan pursuant to those guidelines. We have done state health guidelines. The State Department of Education is doing state education guidelines, which will incorporate our health guidelines. We had a great Reimagine Education Advisory Council that did a lot of work to come up with the guidelines. Jim Malatras ran it for me. I want to thank them all very much for the good work they did. They're education officials from all across the state. They came up with guidelines that will say the districts have to have flexible plans, there have to be safeguards, they're prioritizing safety, maximizing available space, focusing on arts, career, technical education. They have to be innovative. How do you use remote learning? How do you use innovative models, best practices? And all the guidelines will be up today. We want masks and PPE whenever students or staff cannot maintain social distancing. Masks work. They work for children, they work for teachers, they work for everyone. We have social distancing, 6 feet separations. We have cohort structures in the guidelines. Guidelines on transportation, food service, aftercare, extracurricular activities. Every child and person entering will be screened. Tracing has to work in the schools, cleaning and closure procedures. That's all in the guidelines. And again, we've done the health guidelines, State Department of Education, which I do not run. It's a separate agency. They'll do the education guidelines incorporating ours.
Wow, such clarity. I like Andrew Cuomo because he's one of the few people in the U.S. when they speak, it's very easy to understand everything he says, and he's a likable fellow. His brother is also a media guy. That makes me like him. So I think the key points I picked from Andrew Cuomo was that they would use a certain formula. They will look at the daily infection rate. It has to be 5% or lower over a 14-day average. They are planning to study that for the first week of August. If that number is good enough, they will reopen. If there's a spike in August, they will press the emergency button and they will defer. He also said the state will use a formula to determine if to reopen schools and how. So there appears to be some level of clarity there in terms of what the Americans want to do. We'll come and talk about the Ghana situation. Before I talk to my guest, let me also take you to Geneva, because the head of infectious diseases of the WHO, Dr. Mike Ryan, has been speaking generally about what considerations countries should go through to determine when to reopen, whether they are schools or churches or other things. This is Dr. Ryan speaking on Monday.
Yes, there is an issue around how much and to what extent children participate in transmission. There are real issues around how schools can be reopened safely, but the best and safest way to reopen schools is in the context of low community transmission that has been effectively suppressed by a broad-based, comprehensive strategy. We can't move from let's deal with the schools and then we all deal with that for a week or two and then let's deal with the workplace or then let's deal with infection in hospitals or long-term care facilities. This is playing whack-a-mole. We have got to focus on a comprehensive, long-term strategy that focuses on everything at one time. But we can't turn schools into yet another political football in this game. It's not fair on our children. So we have to look at this carefully in the light of the transmission in any given country or any given setting, and we have to make decisions that are based on the best interests of our children, be it their educational or their health interest. And that must be based on data. That must be based on understanding the risks in the specific setting in which schools are. If we suppress the virus in our society, in our communities, then our schools can open safely. And there are many countries around the world in which schools are reopening successfully and safely because countries have dealt with the real problem, community transmission.
So I think the key point I picked from Ryan was that reopening shouldn't be just a question of schools or churches or whatever. It should be a comprehensive plan based on suppressed community infections. Let's speak to two people who know a lot about education. The Deputy Minister for Education and the MP for Bosomtwe is in the person of Honorable Dr. Yao Educhum. Doc, thanks for joining us on The Point of View. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me. Great.
We also have Kofi Asare, who is the Executive Director of the Africa Education Watch, an NGO on education. Kofi, thanks for joining us. Good evening.
Good evening, Bernard. Good evening to your viewers.
I like your John the Baptist beard.
The COVID baptism.
COVID baptism. All right, Honorable Educhum, I know that the US is a place you used to work. What do you make of the way this issue of reopening schools has become such a global subject at the same time? The fact that in Ghana, in South Africa, in the US, we are all discussing what to do with next term. How significant is that?
Let me take this opportunity to say a very good evening to your viewing audience. I've said that COVID-19 and education are strange bedfellows. You're going to have to find a way to get them to coexist until we're able to overcome the enemy and get rid of the enemy. Because education's importance is so profound. And sometimes we tend to forget that we see education as an end in itself. Education is a means to an end. When you talk about socioeconomic transformation of nations, especially in the 21st century, one of the most significant factors is education. If you don't get education right, you are in trouble. So in the light of COVID-19 pandemic and the fact that we had to shut down schools, many countries have come around to see that, okay, if education is so important and it has so many ramifications for us if we have a huge learning loss, if potentially it can set our nations back for years if we do not find a way for COVID-19 somehow navigate our way around it and have schools going, what is going to happen to our nations? And that is the reason why, nations around the world have opened in some shape or form in terms of making sure children can go to school, and then they begin to learn from what we need to do. How do we succeed in this? If we fail, how do we bounce back? What do we need to do? And those abridged kind of opening is now paving the way for people to also discuss in terms of where we go from here. How do we get all children to go to school? And that is the kind of debate that is raging around the world, and the one that you referenced in the United States. But one interesting thing is that we have Cuomo, the governor, disagreeing with CDC and the president, President Trump. But one interesting thing is that you go to Cuomo's own state and you look at the city of New York. The mayor of the city is also pushing that schools should open. And they were having meetings and looking at how they can plan to get New York City schools to open. And Cuomo is saying not too fast, not too fast. So the debate is kind of interesting. And now Los Angeles Unified School Districts in California, also the second largest school district, have decided that when they open schools in August, they are going to go online, so they can see how the situation is trending. So definitely, as Kofi said on also another program with him, and he mentioned a number of African countries that have opened their schools. Ivory Coast have to look at the dynamics and say, okay, I want to go in there. So bottom line is this: nations are struggling. Everybody's trying to find a way to almost like get education and COVID-19 to somehow coexist until we can get rid of COVID-19. So as the government thought about opening schools, and I've mentioned, this is a painstaking decision-making process. It's not something that any government would take lightly, that I'm sending my children to school so that we could get junior high school 3 students to graduate from that level, and then they can potentially prepare for the next level. I'm getting senior high school students to have the opportunity to also graduate from the system so that we can see their way up into the tertiary. And I'm getting tertiary to also the final year students to graduate so that they can see their way clear when situations change regards to work, master's degree, national service, whatever it is. So the government has to grapple with this, getting the final years at various levels to move on, so that you can create space at the lower rank for another group to come in. For example, without getting the junior high school 3 to move on, you cannot even plan towards the basic school, because the kindergarten students are going to be waiting anxiously to get in. The class 1 students will be waiting anxiously to get in. And then same thing applies to the universities, where you need to have first-year students. So basically, knowing the importance of education, some decisions were made, some directives were given as to how we go about it in Ghana. But in other jurisdictions, those are the meticulous kind of planning that had to be done, so that anybody could even consider opening schools. And the interesting thing this time around, as those of us in education who love research, is that we are doing the research as we go, because we don't have any modern pandemic research that we can use to inform the practices. We are used to getting the research and quoting the researchers and saying, this person said this, that person said this. And educationists, we enjoy that. Okay. And then we say that because based on research, this is what we need to do. Now we are doing it as we go along, and it's not an easy process. When some research will come out and people will say, no, you didn't have enough sample. It was just a developed nation, so that you can get the situation under control and get education.
So from what you've said, it suggests to me that one of the considerations for asking the finalists to go to school to write the exam was to prevent some sort of backlog in the event that next term will be possible. You didn't want next term to be possible and have a double backlog. So this was more a preemptive step. Am I correct?
Yeah, I mean, different countries have open school, most of the time not with the whole school, and they always look for a certain group to deal with. There are some countries that decided to go with the little ones. At that time, they felt they are not more vulnerable, they are less vulnerable. In the Ghanaian context, yes, what you said is accurate. It's almost like you are removing this group so that you prevent clogging, so that you can even think about KG going to school, because otherwise there will be no KG1, so to speak. Others will be backlogged behind the gates. And that will make the whole planning process very complicated. And so I think the president was right when he determined that why don't I allow junior high school 3 to just transition, move on, senior high school 3, move on, universities, final year students, move on. So then you have an opportunity to begin to look at with COVID-19 phasing out, dwindling, or even still in existence, then this is how I can get other students to also participate in the education process, the new ones coming up.
So can I say that you are using the finalists as some sort of acid test for readiness for next term, in a sense that you are studying what is happening, and then you use the result of what happens with them to input your decision for September or beyond? Is that what I should take from your approach?
Oh, not exactly, but that is another benefit that you get. It wasn't planned that let's let them go and then we can use them to plan for the next coming year. No, we allow them to go, but we should learn as much as we can from them. It's the greatest opportunity. Even though that is not a rationale, our researchers should be up and doing and look at what is going on, so that out of this, you can have various hypotheses you can prove certain hypotheses and actually get into a theory and begin to look at, okay, maybe the best thing to do is to create communities where those who go to a dining hall, especially in single-sex schools, those who go to a dining hall together should be in the same class, should be in the same dorm, and this is something that Wesley Girls is doing, creating communities, and that is something that we need to learn quickly from. That single-sex schools is much easier to do because they sleep in the same dorms and they offer certain courses. Can you create a scenario that you have third-year students together in a certain dorm, and in that dorm they go to classes together, and they go to classes, dining hall together. So yes, the idea is not to use them to learn about the virus, but it will not serve as well not to use them to understand what is going on and understand why a certain school may have a situation, another school may not have it. So this is a treasure trove for researchers. They're going to go out there and allow research to find out what we need to do better.
Kofi, Africa Education Watch. I'm not sure if there are any other African countries who have their final years in school as we have in Ghana. So talk to me about how different is Ghana's strategy from what pertains in different parts of the world, and how cogent is our strategy based on what you know as global best practice?
Well, good evening to your cherished viewers, and good evening to Honorable Edichum. Bernard, if you study the general impact of COVID on education systems worldwide, you would find a common line of effect, which is a reduction in the time on task. Why? Why? Because as lockdown kicks in and social distancing protocols emerge, you realize that there's a fixed factor, which is infrastructure. And so with fixed infrastructure, all you can do is that you have to socially distance within the fixed infrastructure. And so either you go in batches or you go in shifts. And so either way, it reduces the time on task. The amount of time that the teacher would have spent teaching reduces from about 8 hours in a day to about 4 hours. And so that is the common dimension in terms of impact of COVID on all educational systems worldwide. So if you look at Europe, for instance, in most countries like Switzerland and the Netherlands, they started by batching, by allowing students to go to school in batches. One batch will go on Monday and Tuesday, and then another batch will go on Wednesday and Thursday. Down south, I mean, in Africa, since we are used to the shift system in the past, so you see countries like Sierra Leone currently deploying morning, afternoon. And so it's the same thing. You probably would do 8 hours a day or 8 hours in a week or 12 hours in a week. But you can either do it by coming to school on Monday and Tuesday and then stay home for the rest of the week, or you come half day every day for 4 days or 5 days. And so that's a general dimension. Now, our approach is quite unique because Ghana, I think, is the only country in Africa which has a heavily modernized secondary education system. Ghana, our secondary education system is quite unique. And so when you have a secondary education system which is heavily modernized, about 70% of the students are boarded, then it makes it a bit challenging because you have to have a policy that will virtually confine all the students within an environment to prevent the importation of any disease within the school environment. It is challenging though, but it also has its own advantages because for me, the exposure to the risk of infection is even higher when you have day students commuting. And so if you have a boarding system like ours, I see our approach in respect of our system to be the safest because the children are confined in an environment, and once you are able to prevent the importation of any virus onto the school compound or into the school environment, then the students are very safe. Unlike our brothers in Sierra Leone currently, where they are running, basically day schools all over. And so our approach, so far as I'm concerned, is one of the best in the continent in the sense that it restricts access to the school by any other foreign, factor. Apart from that, if you look at South Africa, for instance, South Africa's system is mainly day. Every other week, last week, South Africa recorded about 60 cases across the country. In Eastern Cape alone, in KwaZulu-Natal alone, they recorded about 30 cases, in 21 schools, and they had to close down the schools. After 48 hours, they reopened the schools after they fumigated the schools and then also provided the health support to the students. But those are day schools. Ours are boarding schools, and so you may not be seeing such weekly huge numbers of infection as you'll be seeing in South Africa because ours are confined schools, and so it's difficult for any person to enter the school environment with an infection. And so our approach
So you think our approach is great
in terms of health?
Thank you. I'll take a short break. When I come back, I'll find out from Minister what timeline we are working with in terms of next term, because I remember you said to me this morning that most African schools are looking at January. Then we'll debate that as well. This is the point of view. We're talking to Deputy Minister Educhum and also Kofi South Africa Education Watch with a big reopening debate. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
It's time to be extra. To get extra. Be extra with Airtel Tigo's new call and data bundles. Live extra only on Airtel Tigo.
Dial *111# now.
Airtel Tigo. Life is simple.
Yeah, Chemo, what's up?
Have you heard from Laura today?
Yeah. She's getting ready to go and register.
Registration for what?
Register for the voters ID to vote for the first time.
Not the Scotchy son. Let me go ahead.
Hey, you, the chilling bro. How are you?
I'm good, you?
I'm fine. What did the humble lion? Have you been able to convince KB to go and vote for the upcoming election?
Laura, I've tried, but Kay doesn't see the need to go and register. So please do your magic trick.
Come on. My brothers, this is the first time you're going to cast our votes come December. No registration, no vote. And if you don't vote, someone will choose your president for you. I had the privilege to enjoy free education, so I must go and register so I can vote for my younger generation to also benefit from free education.
This is so cool. Four more for Nana.
Yes, so 4 more for Nana.
2020, 4 more for Nana. 2020, 2020,
Welcome back. This is still the point of view. We're trying to understand the preparations for school reopening. It's a big global debate. My guest is Deputy Minister for Education, Honorable Educhum and Kofi Asare. Honorable Deputy Minister, so Africa Education World thinks your approach is great. But in terms of timelines, in your mind, what is the date you are looking at? Are you hoping for September reopening, or is still up in the air? Give us an idea of the timelines government is thinking about.
I'm sure at the highest levels of government, some discussions will be going on. But you know, the September is when we finished. First week in September is when the WASI is completed. So you can have students in school in September when they are doing the WASI. So I'm sure there will be some timeline that will come. But the focus is how do we get the final year students transitioned. And once that is done, stakeholders will make a lot of sense. So discussing with stakeholders as to the way forward is not going on now because we are all focused on how do we get the final year students out of the system.
Because, Kofi, you said in the morning that from your scanning of the African continent, the earliest that schools were thinking of reopening was January. Can you elaborate a bit on that? Because we seem to have an advantage of the finalists are already in school, so we can have more information. So talk to me a bit about that. Is it realistic to think around September, or we should also think around January?
From the CSO perspective, we can only project, looking at the timelines, the feasibility of the timelines available, and also the actions that need to take place between now and then the reopening of the next academic year. Yes, the WASI is going to end first week of September. All other things remaining good as we currently are observing. And then BC will also end, I think, 10 days after. It normally, I am already to take WAEC about 45 days from the day of the last paper for results to be ready. And so that might take us to the first week of November, plus or minus. And so for those who are transiting to senior high schools, we know how long it takes to coordinate a properly mapped out placement exercise. And we know the challenges of how they've placements in the past. And so they need to meticulously, get this right this time around. And quite apart from that, you see, as you mentioned, what is going on now is virtually an asset test in a way, in that we are aiming to document our experiences with the finalists and then track green and track gold, and then use it to inform the rollout of a comprehensive reopening plan for all schools, if you like. And so a lot of review and reflection will have to take place when school vacates in September. A lot of simulations will have to take place for us to consider how we are going to approach reopening, especially having cognizant of the challenges that we are currently facing, i.e. issues relating to congestion, issues relating to the confinement of all, days into the boarding school, issues relating to the preparedness of teachers, the gaps in teacher preparation to manage the school, issues relating to risk communication management and all that. And so by the time we finish doing all these simulations and planning, we'll definitely end up reopening the academic year in January. And that, for me, if we reopen the next academic year, in January, it will even be, it will be in a way advantageous because we will, apart from the fact that we'll be aligning our academic year to our financial year for the first time, We will also have the benefit of, in most Western countries, there's a first academic year starting the first quarter and the second one at the end of the year. And so that may be an opportunity for us to look at how we begin to align our academic year.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. If I know this is debated rigorously in government before you come to a conclusion. So if you use the analysis Kofi just did in your meeting with the president and everybody else, and you mentioned January, what kind of response would you get if you did this analysis in your next cabinet meeting?
I'm deputy minister, so I don't go to cabinet. But I'll tell you, Kofi is laying out a very good framework that can be used for conversation at any level of government or at any level of society, be it with stakeholders, with you guys, the media people. So I think it's making a lot of sense in terms of his estimates and projections.
But parents are very anxious around this period. I'm sure you know the Accra Girls situation and the apprehension around the finalists in school. I mean, what is your feedback to the president about this? Because if you listen to some of the parents, they feel their kids are being used as guinea pigs and they are not very happy. What is your comment to parents who are still unhappy that their finalists have to be in school despite the rising number of cases in the community? We seem to have a freeze with the minister. We'll try and bring him back on. Hello, Kofi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Let me ask you a different question. If the minister comes back, then we'll go back. The issue of the increase in transmission, WHO's head of infectious disease said the most important factor to consider for reopening is transmission in the community. Our transmission is going up. If you listen to the 4 categories, we are either in the acceleration phase or we are part of the group that opened too early. Should that not weigh more in our decision-making to reopen? Because it seems as if everybody's forgetting about that and thinking about the school calendar. But the cases are actually going up. As I talk to you, we are around almost 26,000 cases.
Bernard, all the discussions or the projections that we are making obviously situate within the COVID environment. The common denominator here is whether or not we are able to stabilize or reduce infections. But if we have a situation where infection rates keep increasing as we approach the end of the year, then obviously all our predictions wouldn't have been accurate. And so in all the discussions, in all the planning that we have, in all the discussions, in all the planning, in all the projections, the common denominator is that we are able to either maintain or reduce the rate of infections in the country. Because we realize that the numbers we are dealing with are quite huge. If we are to reopen schools in January, you are talking about, even though they will go in batches, you are talking about 400,000 students going, 300,000 students going to school at a particular time, because we are about 1.2 million in school. So if they have to go in 4 batches, you are talking about 300,000 at a time, and that's a huge number. And so to the extent that we don't have the capacity to test every student at the point of entry or at the point of admission, it becomes necessary for us to rely to a heavy extent on a reduction or a reduced incidence of the disease before all the permutations relating to the reopening of school, possibly in January, can materialize.
All right, thank you very much, Kofi, and thank you very much, Honorable Educhum. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we have more for you on this very global debate on the issue of school reopening. This is the point of view. Don't go away.
I'm just not ready yet.
I want to wait a little before getting pregnant again.
Stop worrying and live free. No matter who you are, Lydia has a contraceptive just for you. Choose the Lydia Daily Contraceptive Pill with iron as your regular contraceptive, or the Lydia IUD, a non-hormonal contraceptive for long-term pregnancy prevention. Contact the Lydia Contact Center and let us help you decide how to live free. With Lydia, you truly decide.
This one is for all the children. If you want to learn mathematics.
I need your siblings to go online instead, but I've used up all our internet data for the month.
Get them Asanka.
Yes.
No. Asanka is a Wi-Fi device that delivers preloaded educational content for KG, primary, JHS, and SHS without the use of the internet and without the use of other data costs. You can order online and have it delivered to your homes, and also, one Asanka can support up to 20 plus devices.
And you don't need the internet?
No.
Wow.
We succeed with Asanka.
For more information and to purchase, please visit myasanka.com or call 026 57 33 200.
Hello, my brothers and sisters. I'm John Mahama. The Electoral Commission of Ghana is compiling a new voter register in all parts of the country. And all Ghanaians 18 years and above are eligible to register. Whether you have previously registered or voted in an election before, you must register now to be able to vote in the December 2020 elections. The time to make a change is now. Register today to vote in December and make a difference in your life and that of your family. Your vote is your voice. To be able to vote, you must register. Register now, and let's do it for Ghana.
Welcome back from the break. We're still talking when to reopen. Our guest, the Deputy Minister for Education, Honorable Osei Aweduchum, and of course Kofi Asare from the Africa Education Watch. Honorable Minister, thank you for staying. Before the break, we were thinking and talking about the anxieties of parents, especially those whose kids are in final year. What is your assurance to them that their concerns have been factored in and that their kids are not in harm's way?
Thank you so much for such a very important question. Parents are most important in education. Without them, of course, there will be no schools. When step in and make sure that, especially in a COVID environment, the protocols that have been put in place, developed by the Ghana Health Service and the Ghana Education Service, has laid out certain requirements, and when followed, will provide a very safe environment for the students. The president directed at the time of the school opening that certain PPEs have to be made available. As I speak with you, those have been made available. Teachers are being trained, headmasters are being trained on a continuous basis to ensure that they know how to go about the implementation of the protocols. Our students, as I speak with you, in a number of schools, orientation took place to enable them know the havoc that can be wreaked by this disease if you do not follow the protocols. So a number of things have been put in place, and I can let you know this. The close coordination between health facilities and schools that are in their catchment area is one single most important activity that is being done by Ghana Health Service, which is impacting positively on students. In schools that have infirmaries, nurses have been provided. In other places, the guidelines was to set up a makeshift kind of clinic where there will be a nurse. And as I speak with you, Ghana Education Service, Ghana Health Service is making sure this happens. I want to assure parents that yes, your precious children have been given to the care of adults in settings that sometimes you may not know. But we want to assure you that given everything that the Ghana Health Service has been put in place, at this point in time, your children are being taken good care of, and in places where there have been one or two cases, or in the case of Accra girls, where we've had some more cases, the Ghana Health Service is relooking and taking a look at anything that they need to do to ensure that your children are safe. I just want to assure you that Nana Akua understands the importance of education, but he also cares dearly about your children's well-being in terms of their health and in terms of their safety.
Now, Honorable Dr. Tedros, the WHO director, said on Monday that mixed messages from leaders are undermining the most critical ingredient of any response, which is trust. How do you garner trust when, after the president has clearly told us what to do, the youth organizer of the governing party goes to a classroom to speak to students, which is completely against all that was planned? Is that not a mixed message? And is that not going to further undermine the trust of parents in the system?
I'll tell you this. In the social media era, a number of times what you see may not be what took place. I've been on record as saying that if in fact it happened, it's unacceptable. Immediately thereafter, Ghana Education Service, of course, had to look into it. The person who has been accused of having gone to classroom also issued a statement to the effect that he did not step into any classroom at the school, but he was at the registration center. As I speak with you, I haven't received any information to the effect that he was actually in the classroom. But I've said it, and I'm on record, that anybody who steps into a classroom to talk to students at this critical moment, there are processes that can be used to deal with that person. But in the case of the youth organizer of MPP, based on the information that I have, and based on the information that has been gathered so far, and based on what the statement that he issued, he was not in the classroom. That is what we know at this point, that he didn't move from classroom to classroom talking to students, but he was in fact at the registration center, and that is what I know at this point.
But even if the registration center is in the school, and we are already dealing with anxious parents about this registration, why did he have to go to the school at all?
You see, the point of the matter is this. Whenever you are doing registration, in order to ensure...
We're having a difficult connection. Let me come to Kofi. Kofi, I was asking what you made of the whole registration in the schools, because we are talking about trust. We are talking about getting parents to cooperate. Some people think the registration in the schools was not even necessary. Now you have a youth organizer going to a school. Now the deputy minister says he wasn't in the classroom, but does that really matter? Does that not just complicate the whole process?
Well, we have a position on the registration of children in schools. We look at the registration exercise from the point of view of the rights of the students. At 18, the students have a right, constitutional as such, to vote. And that right can only be actualized when they have a voter's ID card. Now, the state has confined the student in a school. And because of the state confinement of the student in the school, the student is unable to go out and register. That is the student who is 18 years. And so under this circumstance, it is a duty of the state to ensure that what the student should have traveled or should have moved out of their homes to go and access is now brought to them by virtue of the confinement to the state. It is similar to the states going to issue out voters' ID card and allowing prisoners to vote. It is not different from that because it's also confined by the state, even though their confinement does not lead to a withdrawal or the execution of their rights to vote. And so I see no reason why the Electoral Commission, I see no reason wrong with the EC extending the right to own a voter's ID card and, for that matter, by extension to vote to students who are 18 within the school environment. However, political activity within the school environment is obviously not permissible, because I am informed that the committee has signed a protocol with the teachers before reopening. And among others, they committed that there won't be any political activity on campus. So to the highest extent, we actually condemn any attempt by any partisan interest to political activity on campus, especially at this critical time. But beyond the elections, Bernard, we appreciate the measures put in place by government to ensure that the school is safe. But we need to draw attention to the fact that yesterday the Minister of Health made a profound statement that congestion in some of the schools is one of the key causes of one of the causes of the infections. You know, we currently have track gold from tools together with the finalists, and the track gold students constitute about 25% of the population of every school. We were of the opinion that initially only finalists should have gone to school because we were not sure about how the permutation would work within the socially distanced environment. Is it not possible, Honorable Edichum, for us to consider allowing the tribal students to go home so that we free school and allow for more distancing? Because Accra Girls, for instance, we are told that students were having lunch in classrooms and all that. And once the health minister has admitted that congestion is a cause, I think that we can take a second look at dispatching the tribal students through public health protocols to their respective, so that we can allow the leaders pick for the Form 3 students to their exams without any... All
right. Honorable Minister, can you answer that question? Whether gold track coming home can help? Yeah.
The gold track now has, by Friday, today's Wednesday, by Friday, gold track has 2 weeks more to go and they are home. So they are literally done. They are starting the exams on Monday. And in just 2 weeks' time, they will be gone and they will be home and will be left with the final year students. So I think in places where the situation may be a little bit tight, that problem will automatically be solved. But I also want to say that this may not be the situation in the vast majority of our schools, where has been done, and then it's not the whole school that opened. Any place where there's any congestion, classrooms can even be converted into dorms, so that you can really do away with that situation. For example, I also know that the headmasters were given the flexibility that in those cases, if you think we are short on dorms, you allow the day students to be day students, so that you don't have any congestion in the boarding house. So yes, I think the idea of the gold track not being on campus, of course, that would have made things easier. But you see, they have lost so much.
Thank you. Before you go, I need to ask you about your experience teaching class act. It's gone viral. We got the most views for your 2 videos. We even have a Nigerian comedian doing a whole satire about your sitting.
This news now for all Africa people, especially the country where for come Nigeria. Not just go anywhere. If you be Minister of Education, Deputy Minister of Education for any of the Africa country, especially West Africa, this news now for now. Where Corona boss out like Jackie Chan, where children know they go school, nothing. The minister, that is the Deputy Minister of Education for Ghana, take him as pain. You know, you say Bele Rutan. Carry laptop like Yahoo boys. We won't go, how do they call this place? So, near my area, go learn work. Carry laptop, go CCTV, start to teach people mathematics, mathematics, right? I see the way this math they teach. I said, no. Our Minister of Education need to watch this. On a gamma, this is your age. Those of you don't know the man I be this. Put on. You are welcome. The way you think they teach will not say you know book. They not just carry put you as the deputy minister for Nigeria. Na farmer. He never know na how to teach maths. Maths we even hard. The man they teach. Those of you don't know watch how they teach. We are regadilaba.
equals to 3 to the power of 2. Because after all, 3 times 3 is 9. 3 to the power of 2 is 9, not 6. I see I've been teaching for many years, and one mistake students make all the time. 3 to the power of 2 is, oh, that is 6. And then when I say 2 to the power of 3, oh, that is 6. No, no, no. When you're talking about exponents, understand. When I say 3 to the power of 2, 3 is repeating itself 2 times.
You see how special they teach. Minister of Education never get WAEC. Some country, they don't even get WAEC. See Ghana, see the way the man they teach. S, find S, na S, they say they define for Ghana now. They say they say for Tetekwashi. You see how the tea they blend. Nigeria, since when Corona come, Minister of Education, I mean,
what was the experience like, and when should we expect to have you back on CCTV to teach what subject?
I knew you were going to ask me when I was going to come back. I mean, it was fun. It was fun. Even though the children were not in the classroom, I imagined that I was talking to them, and that is why sometimes I'll pause. I seek to hear from them as to what their responses were of the show. Class acts. People are not, that's the name of the show. So I'll just leave it on. I see the Nigerian and a number of people are sending it to me from around the world. And I said, oh, wow, I never thought I was going on class acts to perform a class act and to get a CCTV, to get your brand all over the world together with my name. But I'm also looking into coming to do a few.
So it will still be mathematics. Are you still doing mathematics?
Yes.
You will demystify mathematics.
Yes. Oh yeah, we have to demystify mathematics, the easiest subject in the world, but people think it's the most difficult subject in the world.
All right.
Mathematics is fun. So I'll come back.
Thank you very much, Honorable Educhum. Thank you very much, Kofi Asare, Africa Education Watch. Keep up the work you do. Thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister Osei Educhum. We look forward to seeing you on CCTV again, teaching mathematics. Keep it up. We will end it here. Thank you so much for watching. This has been a production of City Television. We know it's a debate that's ongoing. We hope to bring you more on this running topic before schools actually reopen, if they ever do reopen. My name is Bernard Abbe. Thank you for staying with us. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Point of View is powered by Airtel Tigo Extra. Even our bonus data doesn't expire. You the film? Dial *111# to activate now. Airtel Tigo. Life is simple. And Lydia Contraceptive. With Lydia, you truly decide.